Hi, I am Narissa Lee of International Coalition for Human Rights in the Philippines, U.S. chapter. With us is Brandon Lee, an American citizen who is also a human rights advocate in the Philippines, who agreed to be interviewed in relation to the shooting incident in August 2019 in the province of Ifugao, which caused his current quadriplegic condition. Do you agree to be videotaped while you're giving testimony?
Yes, I do.
Do you freely and voluntarily agree to be interviewed?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name, age, and other personal circumstances.
My name is Brandon Lee. I'm 41 years old. I'm with the San Francisco Committee for Human Rights in the Philippines, and I'm a Chinese American.
What organizations in the Philippines have you been a member of?
I was a volunteer for the Ifugao peasant movement from its conception in 2011. I was also the paralegal for the Cordillera Human Rights Alliance for Ifugao province, and I was the correspondent for the Northern Dispatch Weekly in Ifugao province.
Please state your responsibilities in these organizations.
For the Ifugao peasant movement, ever since William Bugatti was killed by state agents, I was the human rights officer. And those responsibility includes giving human rights orientation to peasants who are under attack from development aggression projects such as the mini hydro projects in Tinok Ifugao and the Escenoboides complex hydro dam projects in Lagawi and Lamut Ifugao, as well as the military attack on the people's basic human rights, and servicing political prisoners. And I was also part of the founding of the Just and Peace Advocates in Ifugao, which my role there was just to convene and help as a secretariat when the peasants were under attack. We got the religious sectors together with the professionals to help service the peasants under attack. And as the Ifugao correspondents in the Northern Dispatch, I just help record and document all their violations and sent it and reported it.
What are the objectives of the organizations that you have been a member of?
Well, the objectives of the Ifugao peasant movement is just to uplift the rights and welfare of the Ifugao peasants. We help during the disaster, bring relief, and together as the peasant organizations, helping one another with their problems. Also, with the Ifugao peasant movement, we documented the human rights violations, and we conducted indigenous rights orientation, and we also help with the food insecurity situation. When the camote had a fungus, we looked to partner with the Benguet State University to come up with a cure to that fungus, which that project was also red tagged.
Why did you decide to volunteer as a paralegal in these organizations?
I mentioned at first when William Bugatti, who was our human rights officer with the Ifugao peasant movement, was harassed, and on March 25th of 2014, after a court hearing, William Bugatti was killed by suspected state agents after he attended a hearing for political prisoners where the military were caught lying by the judge, and he openly celebrated. When he was killed, it left a void in the Ifugao peasant movement, and the executive committee asked if I would like to take on that position to be the new human rights officer. And of course, I couldn't say no because there was a need.
What happened to you while you were in the Philippines?
Well, since 2011, IPM members and I have been on the receiving end of threats, harassment, and intimidation from state security forces. William Bugatti was our organizational human rights officer. He was politically vilified and included in the 86th Infantry Battalion of the 5th Infantry Division of the Philippine Army in 2012 target list. On March 25 of 2014, I mentioned earlier that William was killed that day while he was assisting attorney Catherine Salucon at a court hearing of political prisoners, Rini Boyabiva and Virgilio Corpus in Lagawi, Ifugao. Attorney Salucon herself had been vilified and under surveillance by state security forces. Later on, Attorney Salucon was able to obtain the writ of amparo from the Supreme Court of the Philippines for her protection. After William Bugatti was killed, I was appointed as the human rights officer in the Ifugao peasant movement by the executive committee to assume those duties and responsibilities of William. Because I protested alongside the indigenous communities, documented human rights violations by foreign corporations and the 54th Infantry Battalion as the Ifugao Peasant Movement Human Rights Officer, and as a journalist, wrote about their daily attacks on indigenous peoples. Harassment against the Ifugao Peasant Movement and I by state security forces had intensified and escalated. Memes on social media have been released twice a week for a period of a year, politically vilifying me and 10 members of the Ifugao Peasant Movement. And these facts are born and acknowledged by the U.S. State Department through its annual report in 2015. The threats and harassment by state security forces against the Ifugao Peasant Movement and myself had gained attention from media and concerned people. On April 19, 2015, 10 members of the Ifugao Peasant Movement, including myself, received a death threat in the form of the gamong, the Ifugao burial blanket for the dead, with the California idiom, gray May, June gloom, no sky July. It was delivered in a brown envelope addressed to myself with the address stating Dugong Tungod Ifugao, my address in Ifugao, as well as NorCal. Um, it's an expression in California. These political vilification and red tagging leaves a chilling effect on political freedom and has drawn concern from several media outfits and my family, which should explain the following events. On August 16, 2016, I accompanied political prisoner Rini Boyabiva's family and friends and lawyer and Ifugao Peasant Movement members to visit Abiva after his court hearing. During that jail visit, there were several military intelligence officers visiting a rebel surrendery, and they monitored our entrance into that jail and our exit out of the jail. And when I left, they were just taking pictures of us. And after the jail visit, I was tailed by state security forces to a nearby inn in Ifugao. And there the state security force got out of the van, which was parked outside that jail. That's how I know that they were tailing me. On April 23rd, 2017, right before the Cordillera Day, a military intelligence agent joined the Ifugao Peasant Movement prayer circle. And he took pictures of our group. And when I went to confront him and ask him to stop taking pictures and videos, he denied that he did and left. We rode a bus, a minibus, going to Kalinga where the Cordillera Day venue is. And we were stopped at a checkpoint at 9 p.m. And there in the checkpoint, a lieutenant maestrado from the police national forces came onto the bus, and he asked me to get off the bus because of his intelligence report that I was Brandon Lee with the long beard, 6-pocket pants, and that's when Lieutenant Julius Ian Ducklock was also asking questions about who I was. And they pulled me off the bus. And when they asked that they searched my bag, I told them that I don't consent to that search. And when they decided to search the bag, it was an illegal search. And at one point the floodlights went out and my friends told me to cover my bag. In 2018, we observed the heightening of surveillance and increasing frequency of reports of harassments, intimidation from our members in the communities, even in social media. During the period of state agents took our pictures at our office and homes, as well as tricycle terminals, jeep and bus terminals, wherever we went on field work or left the town center. On March 2nd, 2018, Ricardo Mayumi of the Ifugao Peasant Movement was killed by state security forces. And that was documented by the Commission on Human Rights for his advocacy protecting his homeland in Tinok, Ifugao from mini hydro dams. In 2018, prior to the Cordillera Day, flyers attacking the Cordillera People's Alliance and Ifugao Peasant Movement spread across the Lagawi Town Center. And in October of 2018, flyers were again distributed in our communities, suggesting that I am a MPA recruiter and my wife is a MPA contact. In December of 2018, Duterte had signed the Executive Order number 70, forming the National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict, or the NTF-LCOC, which would systematically attack activists, indigenous and environmental defenders, people's lawyers, journalists, and media as communists or MPA rebels, or their sympathizers or supporters. After that formation of the NTF-LCOC, the 54th Infantry Battalion wrote at least 3 letters to the Ifugao Peasant Movement in December 2018 in gratitude because we helped reunite the mother of Ka Iyong, a rebel surrenderee. And in April of 2019, the military sought partnership in monitoring the Pamana projects, which are government peace projects. And in July of 2019, they sought partnership for a cleanup drive within the vicinity of St. Mary Magdalene Catholic Church in Lagawi, Ifugao. These were all deceptive letters, considering that the Ifugao Peasant Movement has long been despised as terrorists by the armed forces of the Philippines. And in March of 2019, leaflets and flyers bearing our names and faces suggesting that we are terrorists are all over the respective communities where we reside and even on social media. The 54th Infantry Battalion has likewise disseminated leaflets, flyers by way of aerial reconnaissance. The Regional Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict in Northern Luzon, which comprises the Police Regional Office of the Cordillera and the Northern Luzon Command of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, conducted a press conference on May 24th of 2019 at Camp Bado, Dangwa, citing Ifugao as the focus with respect to wiping out rebels by the third quarter of the year. And according to them, they are supposed to dismantle the support groups of the red organizations. On July 30th of 2019, at around 10:30 a.m., 4 Army officers came to my house asking my sister-in-law for me. And she told them she doesn't know where I am or when I'll be back. So they came to our office, knocking for 30 minutes. But I told the youth in our office we don't have to entertain them because of the harassment that they've been giving us. And after an hour, we left the office and we passed by the waiting shed where they were waiting, and they were ununiformed, and one of their soldiers took pictures and videos of myself, and I told the youth to go ahead. And then they asked again to partner with the Ifugao Peasant Movement and for me to wait at that waiting shed. But I just gave them 2 names on why the Ifugao Peasant Movement did not want to partner with them. I said William Bugatti and Ricardo Mayumi. And I told them I don't have time to wait for their boss, which was Colonel Naboinig. And I left.
Please state briefly the circumstances that led to the shooting incident.
On the day that of August 6, 2019, I had taken the tricycle to the school and picked up my daughter and my niece, and I brought them home. And that whole week, I had stopped going to the office out of fear, and I've decided not to walk with my daughter and niece for that week, going to school for our safety. And everywhere I went, I decided to only take the tricycle. So after feeding my daughter dinner and cleaning the bones, I went out to feed the dogs. When I went outside, almost 6 p.m. on August 6th of 2019, I just heard a loud thunder sound, and I dropped to the ground, and I couldn't move, and I can barely talk. And when the yaya for my sister-in-law's youngest child came out screaming, I knew it was bad. I told her to get my brother-in-law, and she went down to get him, and he called for my neighbor, which is my wife's cousin, and they put me on a tricycle and brought me to the nearby hospital.
Who shot you?
I could not see the faces of who shot me, but it's clear that even the barangay captain in our barangay in Tungod said that I have no enemies. I have a good record here in this barangay, and I just help the Ifugao indigenous people. And I was clearly only harassed by the military and the police. And most likely it was the 54th Infantry Battalion that shot me.
Prior to the shooting incident, what human rights violations have you experienced, if any?
Like I mentioned before, I was threatened, harassed, intimidated, red tagged, terror tagged on social media, through flyers, through banners around Lagawi, around Lambod, Ifugao, and under constant surveillance.
Who were responsible for these violations?
It was the 54th Infantry Battalion and sometimes the police.
Is there a case filed in relation to the shooting incident?
No, there's not, and that's because I was already incapacitated. The time that I was shot, I wasn't able to speak because I had a tracheostomy surgery right under my neck where they put a ventilator in it, and the bullet that shot through my cheek knocked out 3 of my teeth, and it was very difficult to talk at that time. And by the time I came to this country, it's already hard to file a case in the Philippines. But the Commission on Human Rights in the Cordillera region investigated the case and deemed that there was a violation on the right to my life and that I should be compensated by the Philippine state, and that red tagging should not have happened.
How did this shooting incident affect you?
the shooting incident made me a quadriplegic, a spinal cord injury, and since then I had 7 surgeries. But despite the fact that I can't walk or use my hands anymore, I will still use my voice to help the Filipino people.